Hello everyone and welcome back to the Blackfoot Book Club for yet another edition of my essential film reviews collection. And so I bring you my rambling musings on the 2021 film No Man of God. I first watched No Man of God roughly a year ago, and with a recent gap in my otherwise busy film watching schedule, I decreed to re-watch it again, if only to see if I was as impressed as I was originally a year ago, and suffice to say, I was. I grew up with the grotesque legend that was Theodore Ted Bundy. A voracious reader of true crime, I've read a couple of books on the repugnant serial killer, as well as watching a variety of documentaries of varying quality and returning all the way to my teenage childhood when my dear old mum would treat me every fortnight to a 32-page publication and associated replica newspaper of the day entitled Murder Casebook, and I was as hooked on the story of Ted Bundy as I was with any other from this macabre genre and history of violence. No Man of God only covers the final 4 years of the life of an imprisoned Ted Bundy on death row, as well as a 7-day countdown to his execution in the electric chair on the 24th of January 1989. But I've long been aware of the much larger and much darker backstory to a horrendous serial killer of unspeakable crimes dating back as far as the mid-1970s, imprisonment, trials, a daring escape from jail when on trial, and, when re-arrested and his known crimes publicly acknowledged and published, becoming a charismatic figure with a loquacious tongue who enchanted admirers all around the world. This creation of an image that his followers fell in love with would continue up to the point of execution, as would Bundy's cat and mouse games in not fully admitting to or acknowledging every one of his viciously unspeakable crimes. The flip side to the adoration was genuine anger from a celebratory crowd who chanted "Burn, Bundy, burn," and requested their Floridian neighbours to reserve their use of electricity on the morning of Bundy's execution to ensure Florida State Prison had more than enough voltage to pass through his body and ensure he'd never darken anyone's doors ever again. These two brief tales have always stayed with me and are both used by director Amber Seeley in this, her 4th outing in the director's chair. Running with this theme, the director also cleverly sets the scene with several more phases of real-life footage, the joyous scenes post-execution as described above, the blanket news coverage of the morning, and especially the presidencies of Ronald Reagan in 1985 through to George Bush in 1989. Written by Kit Lesser, and as highlighted at the very beginning of the film, inspired by FBI transcripts, recordings, and the recollections of Bill Hagmaier, there are over 20 credited roles in addition to the 2 marquee roles, but because of their expected dominance due to the story being told, only 2 other roles are seriously worthy of note. Alexa Palladino is excellent as Bundy's exasperated and a little overawed civil defense attorney Caroline Lieberman, whilst Robert Patrick is superb as a cajoling and supportive FBI station chief Roger Dupree. But this is a battle of wills, wits, logic, psychology, and holding a dominant control over the other, and here are your principal players. Ted Bundy, Luke Kirby. Whereby his best friend across the table from him is always shot straight on, Kirby's performance is captured from angles often from below, and presumably to enforce an air of dominance and control as he seemingly plays and verbally jousts with his supposed new best friend and intellectual prey. Forever shuffling and carrying his weighty bundle of legal papers, as well as his loquacious and freeform speaking style, Kirby provides an uncanny portrayal of an evil man, an innocent man, and for a man renowned for his violent and angry outbursts, these are kept to just 2 or 3 occasions. The basketball court incident is the film's high watermark, and the film benefits enormously from this. There's a simmering anger bubbling beneath the scowling smiles, glances and sideways looks, and Kirby's performance doesn't need repeated loud and violent exclamations to reinforce this. It's a cold and calculating performance. Think stellar Billy Bob Thornton, or Daniel Day-Lewis from the 1993 film In the Name of the Father, or Michael Fassbender in 2008's Hunger, as well as an eerie representation of a repugnant man and a caged animal nearing execution. Bill Hagmaier, Elijah Wood. I've long admired the acting skills of Elijah Wood, and not just because of his huge connection to the behemoth Lord of the Rings franchise. My film choices have tended to coalesce with a lot of the American-born actors' performances in recent times, as well as older roles in the incredibly dark and beautiful Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in 2004, Sin City a year later, and Bobby a year after that in 2006. Moving on a decade, I would argue that his portrayal in I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore in 2017 was one of his very best, and furthermore, his portrayal here of an FBI profiler cataloguing the makeup, modus operandi and societal thinking of a serial killer is up there too. Where director Seeley nearly always frames Bundy from quirky and imposing angles, here she catches Elijah Wood's performances more straight on and neutral, thereby reinforcing his position within the battle of intellectual wills across the interviewing table. A behavioural scientist, Hagmaier volunteers for the Bundy assignment when others in his team look the other way. He's forever listening to audio cassette recordings of the serial killer and seemingly distracted in his thoughts, or perhaps those of Bundy himself. Meticulous, prepared, neutral, Wood oozes neutrality and the scientific intellectualism to not entirely bend to the will of the storyteller on the other side of the friendship divide. I was more than a little biased going into my first viewing a year ago, and even more so second time around, and it still impressed me. For all the vaguely described and spoiler-free reasons above, plus the camera angles used within the tight confines of the interviewing room, often just two cameras and relieved periodically with an overhead shot encompassing both actors, I also enjoyed the juxtapositions more second time around. The light and the very dark, the guilty and the innocent, the methodical scientist and the angry, animalistic storyteller. So that was No Man of God from 2023. And I thank you for watching, and I leave you in peace and in solidarity. And I thank you once again for watching. Peace, everyone.